Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. In the last part, we ventured back to Hollow Bastion finally after taking care of the white trinities across the game's various worlds. And now it's time for us to actively, for real, actually finish our duties here in Hollow Bastion. I know I've said that for several videos in a row here, but like I said, Hollow Bastion is far and away the largest chunk of the game when it comes to just the length of the world itself. The Grand Hall here, where we actively fought Riku and where the Princes of Heart were held captive, is our goal for this trip in Hollow Bastion, as we want to investigate the keyhole up there to hopefully stop Heartless from pouring out of it, though they do definitely throw a lot of Heartless in this room itself at you, though it's all things you've seen before: large bodies, wizards, defenders, all that jazz. Again, Hollow Bastion in its various portions is probably one of the best places to get leveling done in the main campaign, if only because there's just so many Heartless. Oh my god! So, I just got the Wizard's Relic dropped from the Wizards. As I've said before in the LP, that is a 0.2% chance by default drop rate from the Wizards. 0.5% if you have Lucky Strikes equipped on all three characters. If you don't bother doing synthesis stuff or any of like the super late game side quests, this is easily Donald's best weapon. It's just not reliable enough to farm it out. When I was going for the Plat trophy, I believe, I ended up getting like 2 of these before I got a Defender Shield, though, which just shows how annoying the odds can be. So before we actively investigate the keyhole here, make sure you jump around the outer edges of the room, as there's a couple of treasure chests waiting for you there that have some pretty good rewards. In fact, one of them is one of my favorite rewards in the game, especially if I'm doing a sword run instead of a shield run. First off, over here, we're going to have a chest with 3 more puppies, but this is a pretty notable one, as if I check my Jiminy's journal, we have now rescued 99 puppies out of 99. So now we can head back to Traverse Town to get the final reward for rescuing all of the Dalmatians. Also, due to that, most of the really good treasure chests moving forward either have an accessory in it that's really good, a stat boosting item, or a really good synthesis material. If not, an outright Keyblade. This is Oblivion, one of my favorites in the game and the outright counterpart to Oathkeeper. This long-length Keyblade boosts Sora's strength by 11. It only has a standard 1x crit rate though and only 30 recoil, so it's only okay at deflecting attacks. Issue is, it got nerfed here in Final Mix. In Vanilla, it had a critical damage bonus of 4, but here in Final Mix, that's been cut down to a bonus of 2. Still powerful, but that nerf makes its reduction of your base MP by 1 much less worthwhile. If I'm doing a Dream Sword playthrough of Final Mix, or if I'm playing Vanilla for some reason, it's still a really good choice, but on my more normal Dream Shield runs, I do effectively a coin flip on whether or not I actively use it at all. Heck, the Final Mix exclusive buffs to Keyblades like Divine Rose make them more worth your time in my opinion. Still really good in the sequels, though. The actual last boss for Hollow Bastion is the Behemoth, quite the monstrous Final Fantasy callback. While large, it's actively a rather easy fight. You can only damage the Behemoth by attacking its central horn, which you can do either from a good jumping strike during certain attacks, using magic outright on it, or simply jumping onto its back like you could during the Dragon Maleficent fight. If you look carefully, there's actively a slight energy shield around the horn. Attacking the horn actively depletes that slowly. When it's completely removed from the horn, that's when the Behemoth gets stunned, leaving it open for very heavy damage and pot shots. But be warned that upon recovering from its stun state, it becomes invincible for a few seconds and will always call down massive lightning bolts that track onto your current locations. You can dodge that, but honestly, I tend to just eat the hit as it's pretty easy to heal off of that. Otherwise, the Behemoth can attack by stomping the ground outright if you're on the floor below it, doing a jump at you from longer distances, though that attack is generally rare due to the fight setup, and it can shoot beams out of its horns. Worth noting, you can return the projectiles from the horns back at it for some extra chip damage, and you can actively also get damage to that attack by actively just touching the horns outright. The Behemoth hurts, but it's easily the least difficult boss here in Hollow Bastion. The 2 Maleficent fights either do more damage or have more annoying patterns, if not both outright, and either Riku fight has more of a threat due to his more persistent attacks. They did boost the damage of most of this boss's attacks here in Final Mix, but due to how slow it is and how many offensive options you have, it really doesn't feel any harder outside of maybe Proud Mode, and even then that's more just a health tank at that point. So in that regard, hats off Kingdom Hearts. You've given us easily the easiest Behemoth in any Final Fantasy adjacent project, because usually I never look forward to fighting these things outside of maybe Final Fantasy IV, and that's mostly just because I know how to deal with them. For beating that, we get the Omega Arts, which I'll talk about in a few moments.
Now let's go and seal that big keyhole.
Sora, you did it.
What are you guys doing here? We came in Sid's ship. This is our childhood home. We wanted to see it again. It's in worse shape than I feared. It used to be so peaceful. Don't worry. If we defeat Ansem, all should be restored, including your island. Really? But it also means goodbye. Once the worlds are restored, they'll all be separate again. Everyone will go back to where they came from. Then I'll visit you guys with the gummy ship. It's not that simple. Before all this, you didn't know about the other worlds, right? Because every world was isolated. Impassable walls divided them. The Heartless destroyed those walls. But if the worlds return, so will the walls. Which means gummy ships will be useless. So you're saying we'll never...
We may never meet again, but we'll never forget each other.
No matter where we are, our hearts will bring us together again.
Besides, I couldn't forget you, even if I wanted to.
What's that supposed to mean?
Hurry! Come and close the keyhole!
Sora, good luck.
Thank you, Sora. I think the darkness has begun to weaken. But I feel a powerful darkness growing somewhere far away. It's the heart of the darkness. It must be where Ansem went. Then we'll take the gummy ship and deal with both Ansem and the Heartless. Oh, we're the answer, Keyblade Master. We offer you this power to aid your battle. And they give us the final fire upgrade so now we can cast Faraga. Sora, your courage can bring back our worlds. Once the darkness is gone, all should return to its original state. Kairi will be back on the island? Most certainly, and you should be too. I can't go home till I find Riku and the king. Alright, so now we have access to the proper endgame. If we check the world map, there's now a new world available to us, and it's the final world in the game. There's a tournament being held at the Coliseum. The competition's a lot tougher now, so be careful. We also have access to the final cup in the game. Before we leave, though, I do want to take care of some very brief things here in Hollow Bastion. Namely, there's another spell upgrade we can grab here now that we've seen those cutscenes. We want to head back to the library and talk to Aerith, as all three of the Traverse Town and Final Fantasy characters that were in those cutscenes are here now. Sora, you should read this. Read what? It's the rest of Ansem's report. Maleficent must have collected it. And we get Ansem's reports 2, 4, 6, and 10. In vanilla, that's all there was, too. Ansem disappeared when this world fell to the darkness. It was believed he died defending people from the Heartless. But Ansem was the one who brought them here. Ansem waits in darkness, but here's a little light to protect you, Sora. And that gets us the Kiraga upgrade, so now we have the best healing spell in the game. Before we go much further, let's actively go read those Ansem reports. It is my duty to expose what this darkness really is. I shall conduct the following experiments. Extract the darkness from a person's heart. Cultivate darkness in a pure heart. Both suppress and amplify the darkness within. The experiments cause the test subjects' hearts to collapse, including those of the most stalwart. How fragile our hearts are. My treatments produced no signs of recovery. I confined those who had completely lost their hearts beneath the castle. Some time later I went below and was greeted by the strangest sight. Creatures that seemed born of darkness. What are they? Are they truly sentient beings? Could they be the shadows of those who lost their hearts in my experiments? Ugh. The Heartless appear in groups and are multiplying rapidly. I've provided them with both living and non-living samples. they've responded only to the living. They seem to multiply after absorbing something from the living creatures. Their prey vanishes without a trace. I believe the Heartless are taking hearts. They are born from those who've lost their hearts, and thrive on hearts seized from others. The hearts taken by the Heartless become heartless themselves. Though I lack proof, I am confident in this hypothesis. I must also study their behavioral principles. Though they lack emotions, they do seem to have some intelligence. How to communicate with them? It's just occurred to me. Could they be the darkness in people's hearts? A massive core of energy lay beyond the door sought by the Heartless. It may well be the ultimate goal of all Heartless. But what is that energy? I have devised a hypothesis based on my observations of the Heartless. The Heartless feed on others' hearts, and they yearn for that energy core. That thing beyond the door must be a heart too, the heart of this world. There is no proof, but having felt that immense energy, I am certain that was the heart of the world. The Heartless are trying to take hearts not only from all living creatures, but from the world itself. But what do they mean to do with the heart of the world? A very good question. Just as people have hearts, so do worlds. The same can be said of the stars in the night sky. And deep within each world lies a door to its heart. The Heartless desire those hearts. Born out of darkness in people's hearts, they seek to return to a greater heart. Yes, that's it. The Heartless come from people's hearts, as does the darkness. Is the core of the world's heart the world of the Heartless? I will pursue the answer there, and become all-knowing. My path is set. I shall seek out the wielder of the Keyblade and the princesses. My body is too frail for such a journey, but I must do this. I will cast it off and plunge into the depths of darkness. The way they pace your information on Ansem throughout the game, I think, is really good, because you actually get quite a different image of him from how you first hear his name from Yuffie in the early Ansem reports versus the late ones. Because, clearly, it seemingly started out with a genuine scientific interest that just became something much, much worse. Either way, puppies! A family reunited. For rescuing all 99 Dalmatian puppies, we not only get one of every single gummy block, we're actively going to get our final arrow upgrade, so now we have access to Eroga. Eroga, if memory serves, doesn't actively boost the damage that the arrow spell does, though. It actively now gives it a deflection property, so it can deflect certain projectile attacks. So we were just in Wonderland for a second there. That's because at this point, I'm actively combing across the worlds for the blue trinity mark I was missing. As I've already said earlier in the LP, I knew exactly which one it was. Through commentary, it's the one here in the Throw It Back in Monstro. And hey, there's rare truffles here, yay. Admittedly, I could have saved the combing for Trinity Marks until we do the synthesis grind later, but something about having them all done before accessing the final world just felt right. As I grab the items from this Trinity Mark, though, let's talk about the Omega Arts accessory we got from the Behemoth fight. Whoever that's equipped to gets a bonus of 3 to their HP, strength, and defense stats, making it one of the most aptly applicable accessories to basically any given playstyle. I love this. It's going on Sora whenever I get a spare chance to, and it's staying on him for the rest of the game. But yes, that's every Trinity done. We're about halfway done with Jiminy's Journal in general now, and some of those will wait until we actively finish certain things like super bosses before we get their marks. Let's warp back to Hollow Bastion really quick, and then head on to our final world, though, as I want to get that started today. We're also going to watch this specific gummy ship route in full speed, just because it's the final one of the game. Might as well show you just how ridiculous they get, even with a fully loaded gummy ship. In the meanwhile, though, I actually want to talk about something, specifically the Oblivion Keyblade really quick. From a quote from Nomura directly, I think, in the Kingdom Hearts Ultimania, we actively know that while the Oathkeeper was given to us by Kairi, originally the Oblivion was going to be given to us by Riku. We don't know when or where he would have given it to us, but most guesses are from either fight against him in Hollow Bastion. Getting it from the first fight kind of signifies that Riku's at his lowest point in the campaign, while the other signifies Ansem's takeover in my eyes, so either would have worked. Helps that you effectively do literally get it after that Ansem fight when you get back to that room. It's just hidden up in a little treasure chest there awkwardly. So yeah, their way of making the final Gummy Ship route difficult is just spamming the most powerful Gummy Ship Heartless in the game, the Omegas at the very end there. It's honestly kind of funny looking, especially at higher speeds when you'll just encounter them more and more, much more quickly. But here we are, the end of the road, at the end of the world. Let's start off the final world in the game.
Gorge, is that all that's left of the worlds taken by the Heartless?
Those worlds will be restored if we beat Ansem, right?
You betcha!
But if we do beat him, and all these worlds become restored and disconnected, what's gonna happen to this place? And to us?
Well,
This is a Heartless world, so maybe it'll just disappear.
huh?
But no worries. Even if this place goes poof, our hearts ain't going nowhere. I'm sure we'll find our pals again. Yep, I just know that we will. Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I'll return this. I promise.
You know, thinking on it, we do at least have some optimism in that because we did see Beast actively reach an entire new world entirely out of willpower. So the first room here in the end of the world is a giant invisible maze, quite literally, as we have a new Heartless here, Invisibles. These are easily the most aggressive standard Heartless type in the game. They can outright dash at you with a thrusting attack with their sword, they can fire homing projectiles at you from a distance higher up, and they can swing their sword around violently while spinning away to get away from your own aggression, similarly to either of the Hollow Bastion and Riku fights. Their worst attack, though, is where they thrust their sword into the ground. When they do that, they channel themselves into dark energies that will hover around a character in your party for a moment before enclosing on them, doing damage. It can be avoided with a well-timed dodge or jump, but the larger issue for me is that they're entirely invincible while starting and ending the attack, which can be a real annoyance in the final cup in the game, as there's plenty of them here, and that just eats up time like nothing else. With that said, the new Heartless for this world can all drop the Gale item, which is an important thing for end-game synthesis. We're going to need to grab several of those. Definitely very imposing looking Heartless, though. In fact, if memory serves, when I was first playing the original PS2 release on my TV as a kid, their name Invisible was pretty on the note because I barely could see them with how dark the screen was. So the way this maze works here is similar to the sign maze of sorts from Link's Awakening, where there's several platforms shaped like arrows that point you in a specific direction. You need to follow that to a note, otherwise you're going to hit an invisible wall. With that said, pretty much every platform also has a treasure chest on it, but most of them actively contain another encounter, usually against Invisibles, Dark Balls, or the third Heartless type tied to this world largely. Dark Balls are more actively belonging to this world than Hollow Bastion in my eyes, even. This chest here is pretty funny, by the way, because you get a pretty stone from it. You know, the thing we got as a reward from winning the race back in Destiny Islands. Which does lead into a major fan theory that the end of the world here is what's left of Destiny Islands after what happened to it. Which is a pretty nice theory, and I do kind of lead into that myself, but there's no active text stating that, but there is enough visual similarities and theming choices there that you can do with that. There are also occasionally orbs falling down, as you can see. If you get hit by one of those, you're thrown into another encounter. Worth noting, some of the Heartless around here are also just outright the Behemoth boss fight again, and I'm speeding up all future instances of this guy because he just takes a while and has a lot of health. A majority of the chests in this room outright are either synthesis materials or combat use items like an elixir, I think, for the next chest coming up here. But you do want to make sure you grab all the items here, more for the enemy encounters tied to them, as the experience you can get from them can culminate in quite a few levels very quickly, which can help you out towards the actual end game here. This here is the other notable Heartless tied to this world, Angel Stars. Whereas Invisibles are the physical fighters, Angel Stars tend to keep their distance and cast at you. Their only physical attack is swiping with their wings when close up. Otherwise, they can fire lightning bolts from their body, spin away from you, leaving a very damaging tornado where they were, or they have their own version of the Holy Spell from Final Fantasy, which is a large bullet that they can just fire at you from in front of themselves. They do glow before casting any of these spells, but their lightning balls and Holy itself can be deflected back with a well-timed guard. They are immune to thunder damage themselves outright, though, so be wary if you've relied on that spell a lot throughout the game. They can also kind of cower behind their wings when leave themselves invincible for a good time while doing so watch out for that. I think if you can get behind them while they're doing that, you can still deal damage, but in most cases when you're aggroing one, it's going to be focusing on you and always facing you, so that might not be the most reliable strategy. The end of the world might actively have one of my favorite kinds of bookending, though, when it comes to any game, be it RPG or otherwise, where the main music here is outright the music that we heard back in the Dive to the Heart at the very start of the game when we chose our dream weapon and all that. The combat music's the same, the atmospheric music's the same, and it's so gorgeous, and it just really adds a lot to the atmosphere here. Them using that at the Dive to the Heart and then again here was such a good choice. So our goal in this room is to reach the giant glowing mass of light in the distance at the end of this room, which you can do from this next platform, but you might notice there's another platform to the left of this one. We actually need to backtrack to get that specific chest from this platform, which for some reason took me several playthroughs to figure out because I just couldn't find the pathway for some reason. I guess I just figured I couldn't backtrack on that regard. And that's the ones you really want to go for as the final chest of those set. Probably has the best iron to get out of any of these. Plus, hey, a free Gale, that's nice to have for synthesis down the line. Hidden in this chest all the way over here is another AP up. That is after another fight against a bunch of dark balls and invisibles and even some shadows here. The end of the world can definitely be very intimidating, especially because we are at the end game, so you should expect some active resistance here. But not for nothing, there's only really 2 fights in my eyes that really should give you a lot of issues here, even on a first playthrough. Mostly because one of them kind of comes out of nowhere, and one of them's a marathon. The final boss is excluded from that, mostly just because there's a lot of unique circumstances around the final boss here we'll talk about at the end of the LP. Depending on your resources, you might want to go back to the start of this room to use the save point again, because once you actively touch the light in the distance, we are going to be thrown into another fight against a behemoth, which once again we're going to speed up. We're also going to end off for the day after this fight, which can seem a little awkward, but frankly, with how I paced this LP, I had no other really good early endpoints in the end of the world due to how it's paced. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 35, we're going to go deeper into the end of the world and hopefully see if we can approach the end of it in the process. See you guys then.